Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue or rewind it just a little bit.
But rooted in the knowledge of the self, that I am the non-dual self, this entire world shining forth. This world is your princess of Kashi. This world, yes, this is your princess of Kashi. The good and the bad, all of it is you. Not the slightest difference between you. By you I mean the real you. That's why Gaudapada first said, Atma Satyanubodhena. Once you realize the truth about yourself, after that, not as a body and mind. Then everybody else is a body. If you are a body, everybody else is a body also. If you are a person, everybody else is a person also. If you are pure consciousness, then the entire world, you see, appears in you, the pure consciousness. Samsara disappears. You see, this is the important thing. Difference between the yogic approach and the Vedantic approach. The yogic approach seeks to free you by erasing samsara, shutting down samsara. It's like you're watching a movie, a horrifying movie. You've forgotten it's a movie, you're scared. What's the way to come out of being scared? The yogi will tell you, switch off the movie. The Vedantin is telling you, see that it's a movie. Then the most horrifying movie also you will enjoy it. You will give Oscar award to it. The more horrifying, the more Oscar awards you will give to it. Atma Satyanubodhena. Samsara goes away. One Swami said, very interestingly, that...
Before we continue with that, actually I like that. Instead of turning off the movie, you understand the movie. Understand that it's a movie. And that's kind of the approach that I've been going at before even watching these, to a slight degree. And I've been mostly focusing on emotion, just because that is the thing that tends to get people in trouble. Angry, sadness. Well, again, the sheer fact, back in my college, I said this many times before, that whenever we got into world religion, talking about Buddhism, and the words that she said was, life is suffering. That, again, like I said, blew my mind. And she talks about how Buddhism is supposed to relieve you of that, to understand that. Even though, again, it's a world religion class, so it talked about many religions, we touched up on a few things, but that changed my outlook in life to where I start to try to understand emotion. That even though I never thought about it like, oh, the emotion's not me, but what I try to the way I try to look at it is that there's the emotion, understand it, not separate it from yourself, understand it. And as far as it's saying here, this is kind of like the idea that I had, just I guess I have maybe more of an Advaita Vedanta than I am a Buddhist, even though long history.
अद्वैत भला व्यवहार मिटाने के लिए नहीं. Non-duality, Advaita, is not meant for wiping out your activities in this world or for destroying your life in this world. Oh no. Then what is an Advaita? What does it do? In Hindi he said, Advaita आपको व्यवहार में निर्बाध बना देता है. Makes you absolutely limitless and freeless. And limitless and free. Limitless and free in your life. Right now we are limited. I am different from you. This is limit. My life is limited. I was born in such and such time. I'm going to die after some time. My capacities are limited. I'm a tiny being in the vastness of time and space. What Advaita does is, it shows you the entire vastness of time and space is nothing other than you. You are the infinite consciousness in which the entire universe appears. How does it do that? How does it do that? How can you see God with eyes open? Kabir, he says, Khule nain dekhu sahab ko. I shall see my Lord, my beloved Lord, with open eyes, not just in meditation, with open eyes. Sri Ramakrishna says, Chok bando kurli tini achin, chok khulle tini nahi. You can see God only with closed eyes. You cannot see God with open eyes. What kind of God it is? That if just closing the eyelids, then only God is there. If you open your eyelids, God goes away. It's a very weak kind of God. Can't you see God with open eyes? This seeing God with open eyes, which Sri Ramakrishna talks about. This seeing, Sahab ko dekho khule nayan, with open eyes do I behold my beloved. That is Kabir. Just by the way, next week on Friday at 7:30 to 8:30, we have a wonderful event. Prahlad Singh Tipania, if you look him up on YouTube, he's a new sensation, I think, in India, who sings Kabir bhajans. A very natural, very spiritual man. With his team, he's going to come here for 1 hour. He's going to perform, and there's going to be a professor from, she's from the Harvard Divinity School. She's going to help us with the translations and guide us through it. So, very wonderful event. Same Kabir. So, how do we do that? The answer is, Gaudapada says, Viveka. What is Viveka? Look at the answer given by the yogi. The yogi says Samadhi. The Advaita, non-dualist, says Viveka. This spiritual discrimination, Sri Ramakrishna said, always discriminate, separate the eternal and the non-eternal. How do you do that? Gaudapada says, even the name Vivekananda, that comes from that, Viveka. Viveka is the peculiar method of non-dualism. There is a beautiful verse to Vivekananda, which goes this way. Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam tasmin samadhatta ihasma leelaya viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam yoso viveki tamaham namami. I salute that Viveki, the one who has Viveka. You see, the word Viveka is common in Indian languages, in Bengali or Hindi. There it means conscience. That which inside, the voice inside which tells us what is right and wrong. But there is a deeper philosophical, spiritual meaning to Viveka which you find in Vedanta. It is related. Conscience basically helps you to separate right from wrong. This separation, this philosophical separation in your understanding, in your grasping, that is done in Vedanta. What is Viveka in Vedanta? In that verse to Vivekananda it is said, Anitya drishyeshu, in this spectacle of ever-changing, temporary, transient world in life, Anitya, all transient. Drishya means experienced objects, this experienced life. In the midst of this, while experiencing this, he was able to discern the eternal. Here itself, Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam. He was able to separate Viveka. Separate how? Not physically, not with pincers or forceps. In your understanding, he was able to note, recognize in this very experience, in our experience of life, the eternal consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss. How? You will ask. We want to know how to do that. I'm coming to that, don't worry. Wait just a minute. Let me finish the translation of that verse. And having separated in his understanding, what did he do? Tasmin samadhatta. His mind became absolutely absorbed in that. Samadhista. Became absorbed in the non-dual reality. With great difficulty? With tremendous effort? No. Ihasma lilaya, like play, like child's play. Why is it so difficult for us, and why was it like child's play for Vivekananda? The next line says, Viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam. The mind which is purified, prepared by Viveka, this philosophical insight, and vairagya, dispassion. Go back to what Sri Ramakrishna said. Continuously discriminate between the eternal and the non-eternal and have vairagya for the non-eternal. So that is where the shoe pinches for most of us. Even the understanding is not so difficult. But then letting go is a little difficult. Mentally again, letting go. So how do we do that? Where the name Vivekananda comes from. How do we practice this vairagya? How do we see the eternal in this non-eternal? Gaudapada says, and that is the teaching of the Mandukya Upanishad. Look at our lives. Our day has these three experiences. The waking experience, the dream experience, and the deep sleep experience. What are we? Who am I? What am I? Am I this person who's sitting here or talking here? Am I the person who, when I fall asleep, maybe I'm walking in somewhere in Mumbai or in Delhi in a dream? Am I that person? Or is it the blankness of deep sleep, knowing nothing, knowing neither myself nor the world? Am I that person? That experience? Gaudapada says, the Mandukya says, you are the one consciousness in which the waker and the waker's world appears, in which the dreamer and the dreamer's world appears, in which the deep sleeper and the deep sleeper's world, I won't say appears, does not appear, blank. You are one consciousness. You are not the waker. The good way of understanding this is our dream example. In our dreams, our mind, when we fall asleep, it constructs a world. And in your dream, you are there also, right? You are also there in your own dream. You don't think it's a dream. You think you are there and you're experiencing something. It's like waking. It's only when you wake up from the dream, that moment of waking up, what is your discernment? What is your understanding? What is your viveka? Oh, it was a dream. All of it, all the people I saw, all the places I went to, all the time that passed, all the events that happened, and most interestingly, even I myself in that dream, that body, that person in the dream, all of it was dreamt up by my mind. And I wake up saying, oh, it was just a dream. But note, all of it was your mind. You alone became the subject and the object. You alone became the good and the bad. You alone became pleasant and unpleasant experiences. You alone became time and space in your dream. Exactly like that in the waking also, not the mind. It is consciousness alone which appears as the waking experiencer, you the subject right now, what you think yourself to be, and your world, this world. Both of them are appearances in one consciousness which you really are. That one consciousness is apart from the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. So the fourth, it's called the fourth Turiyam. First waker, second dreamer, third deep sleeper, fourth is the Turiyam. Is apart from it, but also underlying it, the ground of these three. Just like you, the waker, when you dream, you are apart from the dream person or the dream world, but you are the ground of that. Because of you, the dreamer and the dream person and the dream world appears. In the same way, you are the one consciousness apart from the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper, and yet in and through the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. This is called Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Remember, what are we doing now? Viveka, discrimination. Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Self, non-self. Not nonsense, non-self. The discrimination between self and non-self. Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Note some three things about it. One is the one consciousness is neither born nor dies. It's the person in the dream or in the waking who is born and dies. The body is born and the body dies. People are born and die. Things are created and destroyed. Things in the dream or in the waking world are non-eternal, temporary. They're subject to birth and death. That consciousness is not subject to birth and death. Atma is nityam, eternal. Anatma, not self, anityam. This is viveka, nitya-nitya viveka. Another thing note, even in this world, right now, everything is changing, but the consciousness to which appears this changing world, that consciousness is not changing. Body is changing. Body, traditionally they say six-fold changes. Jayate, asti, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, nashyati. It is born, comes into existence, grows and develops, becomes mature, then begins to deteriorate in old age, and finally dies. Six-fold changes. And all of them are noted by the same unchanging consciousness. Consciousness, the Atma, the self, non-changing. Everything else in the world, whether it's waking world or dream world, changing. Deep sleep world, in the deep sleep no change is noted, but the deep sleep state itself changes into the waking and dreaming. So, Atma, Nirvikara. Nirvikara means unchanging. Anatma, Savikara. It changes. Whether it's the waking world, dream world, or deep sleep. Note one more thing, another point. This is the deeper point. The Turiyam, the pure consciousness, and the waker, dreamer, deep sleeper, are they different? They're actually not different. You, the person in your dream, and you, the person who's dreaming, are the two of you different? No. You, the dreamer, when you are sleeping in your bed and dreaming, you yourself have become the person in your dream, right? That person in the dream is not different from you. You exist without that person in the dream. Because you were there before the dream started, you are there when the dream is there because you are dreaming it, and you will be there when the dream ends, when you wake up. But that person in the dream cannot exist without you. As long as you dream, you, the person in the dream, you will be there. When you do not dream, that person is not there anymore. So, what is the point here? Atma Satyam Anatma Mithya. Very important point. You, the pure consciousness, the witness consciousness, you are the reality, and the waker, dreamer, deep sleeper are the appearances. Just as the person in your dream is your appearance in the dream. Like a role an actor plays on stage. So, all of this, the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper, and the waker's world, dreamer's world, and the deep sleep darkness, they are all appearances of you, the one consciousness. That one consciousness, the Atma, Satyam, it is the truth, it is the reality. The rest, the other three are appearances. Shankaracharya, in his invocatory verses on the commentary to Mandukya Upanishad, he says, Maya Sankhya Turiyam, a very evocative phrase. The real Atman, Satchidananda, you are called the fourth only when you count through Maya. When you count 1, 2, 3, these 3 steps you count are false. They are not really there. Only with respect to waker, dreamer, deep sleeper are you the fourth. But really speaking, you are the one. Those 3 are your appearances. Atma Satyam, Anatma Mithya. The self is real. The non-self is an appearance. Put it all together. Atma Anatma Viveka. Number 1. Atma is Nityam, eternal, and the Anatma is non-eternal. Number 2. Number 3 is Atma is unchanging, Anatma ever-changing. Number 4 is that Atma is Satyam, Anatma Mithya. Put them all together, what you will get is this. If the Anatma is Mithya, can you really count it? It's like an example I gave. If I eat a cookie and then I like it, and at night I dream about eating 3 more cookies. In the morning, will I say I've eaten 4 cookies? I can't say that. I cannot count the dream cookies. It works the other way also. You earn a lot of money, you get a lot of money in your dream and win the lottery, and you're counting the dollar bills. That counting is of no good when you wake up. You can't take that money to the bank. No. But you don't have to pay taxes on it also. That's also there. So,
but it makes me, I haven't said anything in a while. It's just, I guess, he's saying the same thing, and I've heard it before, but I have nothing else to really add to that. I did have some quirks, but I decided to hold up against it. But I do wonder, like, if people would understand this. Like, then when do we actually wake up? Because I guess a lot of them will do a literal translation as the fact that this is a dream. When am I, the true self, gonna wake up? Much like in our dream state, where we're in the dream, and all of a sudden when we wake up, it's like, oh my gosh, all that happened was a dream. I finally woke up. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a nightmare. I'm glad I woke up. So in the waker world, some people are probably things like, well, when am I gonna wake up? and I hope they don't take that too literal. I guess the teaching that I would like to teach is the fact that, again, it goes back to Sri Ramakrishna about saying that do not ignore this world, that this world is still real. Brahman and the absolute reality and transactional realities are real. So don't just, think that because it's the transactional reality that it's fake or something like that. Still, it's real. And even though it is Maya, an illusion, I still don't want to say it that way. I guess I need to understand how Ramakrishna explains the transactional reality, so I can better understand and say it. But I just remember, I forget which video it was, that he explains that do not ignore this world. I'm paraphrasing. And hit cough, by the way, sorry, excuse me. But he goes to show that this world is also real. And that is the thing that I want to preach, I suppose you could say. And not to just say, oh, this world's fake, don't worry about it. And something that Swami Sarvapriyananda here has said as well is the fact that there's two arrows. I think he talked about this with Buddhism, maybe? Or maybe went along the lines of Buddhism, but in one of the videos he talks about the two arrows. You have the physical arrow, literal arrow sticking in your shoulder, and you have to remove it and have a doctor look at it. But you also have a spiritual arrow that you also have to get removed, but you have to do that spiritually, which I do like. I like that explanation. It goes to the fact that, again, the absolute reality and the transactional reality, both now the subjective reality, that's individual, who cares in some sense.
You cannot count the false along with the real. You cannot count the appearance along with the reality. The two cannot be counted together. I give the example of the ornaments made of gold. So a necklace or a bangle or a ring made of gold, and gold itself. So if there are three ornaments and then somebody mentions gold, so does it become four? No. Gold is the one reality and the three are appearances of that one reality. You cannot count the three ornaments along with gold, because gold is the reality of those three ornaments.
I wonder with that example, now that I think about it, he says, why can't you say that the bangle, the ring, the ornament are functions? Functions, form and function of gold. The ring that you wear in your ring, I have no idea what a bangle is. Let me know. And the ornament that you either hang on a tree or something. Why can't we say instead form and function? Maybe that may be complicated, but the only reason why I say that is that way we can say, if everything is Brahman, then we are form and function of Brahman. We are made of Brahman, and this body is form and function of Brahman. Like gold. Gold is the material, and the ring and all that are form and function. There is the form, the ring, circle, the function, decoration. Let's just say a golden car for some weird reason. The form, a car, function, driving. Golden fork. Form, a fork, function for eating or stabbing with the fork. And kind of like us, we have a form, human body, function, live? I don't know, and much like any other thing, like this one, form, pen, function, writing. Would that be a decent explanation? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious about that one, because he keeps using this gold ring. It's only now that he says it's the ring and the ornaments and all that are not real. It's the gold that's real. But if you shape it into a ring, the ring technically is real. It's just to say that it's the form and function again. That's the thing I've said a long time ago, but I haven't really brought it up recently. But I'm wondering, let me know in the comments, you think, would that be a fair comparison? If not, let me know why. If it's so, let me know why. Either way.
If you cannot count waker, dreamer and deep sleeper and their universes along with the Turiya, then Turiya becomes one without a second. Ekam eva dvitiyam. One without a second. Without a second, if you put it in Sanskrit, it means Advaita. Without a second, if you put it in Sanskrit, it means Advaita. So you are Advaita. When you realize this, amanastam tadayati, the mind becomes without sankalpa, it becomes no mind. It still works. You can see the world. You can experience the world. You can use the mind. You can do everything. But like the princess of Kashi, you know it's not a separate reality out there which I have to chase or I have to be afraid of. You become fearless. You attain to fearlessness. Fearlessness is in fact the sign of enlightenment. When Janaka attained enlightenment, his guru told him, Abhayam vai praptosi Janaka. He didn't say you have become enlightened. He said you have become fearless. You become fearless. So, this is the meaning of no mind. This no mind does not force you to sit in meditation. You can sit in meditation. In fact, if you concentrate deeply upon this turiyam, the self, the mind will go into samadhi. So samadhi is not excluded from Gaudapada's definition of no mind. It is there. But it's not a kind of God or reality which you have only with closed eyes. You can as well experience it with open eyes. The prince does not have to close his eyes. The prince can open his eyes and see the portrait of the princess of Kashi, and it looks different, it is called something different, and yet he knows it is I. Aham Brahmasmi. I am all of this indeed. Even with open eyes, even talking, walking, doing one's job in life, living a perfectly ordinary life. It won't be an ordinary life really. Internally it will be an extraordinary life. But that is possible. God is available not only in Samadhi. One Swami in the Himalayas, humorously he said, if the yogi thinks God is available only in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when you sit in meditation, world is shut out, I forget my body, I forget the world, then God will somehow pop into existence. So that Swami, he put it in Hindi, I'll translate for you. He said, Lo, apne pyare ko samadhi ke jail khane mein band kar diya. Look, now you have put your beloved Lord, you have put your beloved Lord into the jail, into the prison of samadhi, and locked it and thrown away the key. Because God is available only in samadhi. If I cannot reach samadhi, I cannot reach God. In mystic trance, in mystic absorption, certainly God is available there, but also here, also now. Just today we were reading Sri Ramakrishna. Somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, why can't I see God? What prevents me from seeing God? And Sri Ramakrishna, in a simple way, sitting on the cot, he took his towel, in Bengali gamcha, and put it on his face. He says, now you cannot see my face? Yes, because of the towel. And remove the towel, you can see my face now? Yes. Just like that, because of our ignorance, we cannot see God. God is, he says the next, God is everywhere, here and right now. It is because of my ignorance that I cannot see God. This ignorance is removed by viveka. Then with eyes open or with eyes closed, the same reality. It's always there. This teaching, Gaudapada gives it a beautiful name, Asparsha Yoga, the yoga of no contact. The yoga of no contact, Asparsha Yoga. Swami Ranganathanandaji, the 13th president of our order, he was fond of this term. He used to call it Advaita Vedanta is Asparsha Yoga. It's also a yoga, a spiritual path. But what kind of spiritual path? A unique spiritual path, which is called the path of no contact. Why the path of no contact? Because you see, Brahman and the world are not enemies. The real and the false are not enemies. You might think that reality and falsity are enemies. No.
They're one and the same.
What is an enemy of falsity is the knowledge of reality. You see, the false snake and the real rope are not enemies. They're not contradictory. It is because of the real rope that we can mistake it and see it as a snake.
They're one and the same.
The desert is not an enemy of the mirage water. It is because the desert exists that we have the illusion of a mirage water. What contradicts The mirage, the water in the mirage, or what contradicts the false snake? Our knowledge that it is a rope, our knowledge that it's a mirage, it's not really water, that contradicts. So knowledge of reality is the enemy of falsity. But reality as such is not the enemy of falsity. In fact, reality is very kind. It tells falsity, you come and settle down here, I have no problem. Make your house here. After all, if it is true that Vedanta is at all true, then we are Brahman when? Now. So after realization certainly, but before realization you are not Brahman, you are Brahman right now. What is this world? It is Brahman, it is the absolute right now. But there is nowhere, we have no idea about the absolute. Brahman, the absolute right now, is the ground of the appearance of this world. This world appearance has no enmity with Brahman. It is because of Brahman that this world is appearing. It is because of Brahman that we have samsara. The knowledge of Brahman is the enemy of samsara. Brahma-jnana is the enemy of samsara, not Brahman itself. Brahman itself has no enmity with samsara. Why? Because there is no real contact between Brahman and samsara. Samsara cannot disturb Brahman. Samsara cannot harm Brahman. The rope, the false snake, cannot harm the rope. Does the rope become poisonous because of the false snake? No. Shankaracharya says, the water in the mirage, in Sanskrit, Marumarichika, the water in the mirage, all the water in the mirage is not sufficient to wet even a single grain of sand in the desert. Right? Because it's not really there. So the appearance, the false world cannot do any harm to you, the real you. Because there is no point of contact between reality and falsity. Because reality is all that exists. If two things exist, then there's a question of contact. If two things exist, but two things do not exist, it only seems to be two because when you try to enlighten a person, when you give a teaching, the person knows the world. Then you have to introduce something called God. And then finally show that it is God alone which is appearing as you and the world. But first it seems there are two things now, world and God. Person knows, I am body and mind. Then you have to introduce something called Atma, self. Then the person thinks, okay, this is not the self, there is something called the self. But after enlightenment, that self alone appears as body and mind. Don't you alone appear as the dreamer's body and the dream person in the dream? All of that is you alone. So it is actually one reality. And the feeling of two, it is an in-between interim stage. The example which I gave about the pot and the clay and the pot. First there is a pot. And then we are told that the constituent of this pot is clay. There is a material cause of this pot, and that is called clay. At this point you will start thinking there are two things. There is a pot and there is clay. Then you examine the pot and you find top to bottom, inside, outside, it's all clay. In fact, you are hard pressed to find anything called pot. Because every real thing there is clay. Every bit of it is clay. There is no such separate thing as pot. And finally you realize it is clay and clay alone. Pot is a name, it's a form, it's a particular use, nama rupa vyavahara. The real problem comes if you stop halfway. If you're told, here is a pot, and there's a reality called clay, then you start thinking, okay, there's a pot and clay. Then you are in trouble. Yeah.
I thought maybe it was going to go along the lines like when you say this is a pot, you start to think, okay, this is a pot and nothing else. You don't think about the material or what it's created out of. It's like the pot. Anything that looks like that's a pot, irrelevant of what it's created out of.
Alan Watts calls it the clay pot theory becomes the crackpot theory. Why? If you stop at this point, what happens is then you are all the time searching for some God somewhere, which is the cause of this universe. Or when you look inside, like the Hindu dualists, the Nayayikas do, body, mind, and some self, some Atma is there separately. You keep searching. So clay pot theory becomes crackpot theory then. That is the problem. If you stop at this point, that is why the yogis say you have to blank out the world to realize the self. Because they think there are two things. You have to shut your eyes to the... Do you really have to shut your eyes to this lectern to see the wood here? If I say, see the podium, say, yes, Swami. If I say, see the wood here, you'll say, yes, Swami, it's pretty easy. Do you have to shut your eyes to see the wood? No. To see the waves in the ocean, go to the beach? Yes, with open eyes. To see the water, do you have to shut your eyes? No. With open eyes, you can see the water. It's a change in paradigm. It's a change in your understanding. The shift is internal. The yogi, because he thinks water and wave are separate things. Gold and ornaments are separate things. You have to shut your eyes, then you can see the reality. So I'll end with a beautiful verse, Asparsha Yoga. That now you understand why it is called no contact. Because there's one reality. Does the clay ever come in contact with the pot? Now you'll understand. The clay never comes in contact with anything called pot. The pot is a construct which we think of. The clay in that form, we call it a pot. There is no thing called pot with which the clay will come in contact. So the clay is asparsha. It has no contact with the pot. Brahman, Atman, pure consciousness is asparsha. It has no contact with this appearance of the world. So Gaudapada has this beautiful verse, a slightly mischievous verse at the end, where he pokes fun at the yogis. He says, Asparsha yoga vai nama durdarsham sarva yogi bhi yogino bibhyati yasmat abhaye bhayadarshina. This teaching is called Asparsha Yoga, the path of no contact. And it is very difficult for yogis to understand this. It's very difficult for yogis to understand this. Why? The yogis are afraid of this path, are scared of this path, because they see fear in the fearless. Abhaye bhayadarshina. They are the ones who see fear in the fearless. Open your eyes, see the picture of the princess of Kashi. No, you will be attracted to that. Don't open your eyes. Keep your eyes closed. No. So, abhaye bhayadarshina. They see fear in the fearless. Once you realize this as Brahman, you are the fearless. This world itself is the fearless. There is no fear here. Sri Ramakrishna says, people call it, he uses two words, dhokartati. This world is a place of deceit and fraud. He says, but I see it as Majarkuti, a mansion of mirth. What is the mansion of mirth? This world itself, after realization, after enlightenment. This world itself is Brahman, the mansion of mirth. Abhaye bhayadarshinaha. So let us put it all together. No mind. This teaching of no mind. We noticed that because of the movement of the mind, we tend to think that there is a world of duality. World of duality leads to bondage, non-duality leads to freedom. So no mind is the key, amani bhava. How do you achieve no mind? The yogi says by samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi. Shut out the world. Don't get involved in the world. Stay in samadhi and finally give it up. Vivekananda said, he who runs away to meditate and die in a Himalayan cave has missed the way. Don't look at the picture of the princess of Kashi. So that is one approach to no mind. Another approach to no mind is given by Gaudapada Acharya. He says, Atma Satyanubodhena, by Viveka. Atma Anatma Viveka, by the Viveka of self and not self. By the Viveka, by seeing that the self is eternal and not self, non-eternal. By seeing that the self is unchanging and the not self changing. By seeing finally the self is real and the not self is an appearance. By this Viveka, you will realize the self alone is non-dual. Advaitam. When you come to the non-duality of the self in this way, you have achieved Amani Bhava. And that Amani Bhava is permanent. It's not dependent on any kind of practice anymore. You see it as very natural. Very good. Let me do a peace chant and then I'll come back for Q&A. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Okay, let me go back a little bit. There's something I wanted.
Because they see fear in pot. Now you'll understand. The clay never comes in contact with anything called pot. The pot is a construct. He's a new sensation, I think, in India, who sings Kabir bhajans.
Wasn't skipping the right.
This teaching is called asparsha, difficult for yogis to understand. The yogis are afraid of this path, are scared of this path.
The video over with. I'm gonna find that spot hopefully because I had something to say, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Because they see fear in the fearless. Fearless. Kashi, no, you will be attracted to that. Don't open your eyes. Keep your eyes closed. No. So, abhaye bhayadarshina. They see fear in the fearless. Once you realize this as Brahman, you are the fearless. This world itself is the fearless. There is no fear here. Sri Ramakrishna says, no, this path. Because they see fear in the fear. And
Okay, I think this is the...
yogi bhi yogi no bibhyati yasmad abhaye bhayadarshina. This teaching is called asparsha yoga, the path of no contact. And it is very difficult for yogis to understand this. It's very difficult for yogis to understand this. Why? The yogis are afraid of this path, are scared of this path.
More. Sorry.
Because pokes fun at the yogis. He says, asparsha yoga vai nama. Anything called pot. The pot is a construct which we think of. The clay in that form, we call it a pot. In paradigm. It's a change in your understanding. The shift is internal. The yogi, because he thinks water and wave are...
I'm going to pause right here. I'll be right back. Okay, I think this is a spot, but this is my best guess. Let's play it.
Now we understand why it is called no contact. Because there's one reality. Does the clay ever come in contact with the pot? Now you'll understand. The clay never comes in contact with anything called pot. The pot is a construct which we think of. The clay in that form, we call it a pot. There is no thing called pot with which the clay will come in contact. So the clay is asparsha. It has no contact with the pot. Brahman, Atman, pure consciousness is asparsha. It has no contact with this appearance of the world.
That. So I'm trying to figure out how to translate that in a sense, translate it, or how to explain that. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, like, okay, the clay pot, obviously clay is the material, pot is the form and function. And Brahman is the material, and this world is form and function. But there's no contact, as in, obviously, in terms of the clay and the pot, there's only ever clay. There's no such thing as pot in terms of the material. But in terms of Brahman in this world, Maya, I think that's the right way to say it. Brahman is the material, and there's no such thing as this world, this Maya. But yet we still, I guess the thing is that yet we still see it exists. We still play our part in this world. Kind of like the pot. Like, I'm trying to relate from the pot, because pot's very easy to understand, you know. If I were to explain that to someone who doesn't know anything about this, I say, okay, you know, do you know what a pot is? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it actually. It seems simple, but then whenever I try to talk, it seems very difficult. So it's like, okay, here's a pot. It's like, well, this is actually only clay. The pot is form and function. If I were to destroy this, you wouldn't say now it's a pot. No, it's still clay, or crumble up into little particles. It's still clay. And then if I shape it into a statue, it's still clay. I can explain that. But how do you explain that in terms of this world, though? Like, you can't crumple Brahman. I guess perhaps maybe because a pot is something within the world that's easy to understand, that we can see and touch, whereas perhaps Brahman is something that's part of the world and it's a significantly more difficult to grasp. Because right now I'm struggling with that. How to explain that? How to explain that this world is Brahman? That we are all mere appearances in it. But I know someone who watched this loves when I say appearance in Brahman, and I get it. Um, but still, how do you explain that though? And that's the one thing I don't quite understand how to explain. I can explain the pot and it makes sense, but how do you explain it in this world? How do you explain Brahman as this world? Let me know in the comments, if you care to. Anyway, I'm not going to take up too much time, so that's my reaction to No Mind by Swami P. Ananda. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next vid.